What a massive welcome to you today. We are going to be doing some very cool indexing. It's going to be a nice, simple indexing of an ERC-20 contract. So to start off, I'll just show you that I have an empty folder here. We're going to be using Envio to index, as I said, an ERC-20 token. So first, what I'm going to show you is base scan. So base is an L2, and we're going to actually index the USDC token contract. As you can see, every couple of seconds there's events being emitted, and blockchain indexing is very carefully taking and extracting the information we care about and organizing it so that we can very easily and quickly retrieve it at a later stage. So perhaps you want to find out some of the biggest USDC transfers. If you index that, you can figure out that information very quickly, as opposed to having to scan all 8 million blocks of base and then determine it at that point in time. But to start off with, let's have a quick look at what an ERC-20 token actually is. I'll run through this super quickly, but this is just Open Zeppelin's implementation. You can see ERC20.sol. This is actually what a token is. And as you can see, it's got some simple things like a name and a symbol. And what we're going to actually just index today is transfers. We want to see who is the USDC going from and to, and the amount. And you can see it implements this transfer method over here. And this is whether you're transferring it from one person to another. You can see it all boils down to the same transfer function. And when we look at it, what we will see is we'll see that an event is emitted. So we'll see this update function is called, and you now see from this update function after transfer is called, what happens at the end is this emit transfer event happens. Now we want to get every single transfer event that is emitted on base for USDC, and we are going to index it so we can then perform code logic, do all kinds of interesting things. So in Solidity, you'll generally see this emit, this transfer event, and this is what we care about: from, to, and the value. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by grabbing and copying this address. Again, this is on base scan, and this is the USDC address. You can see over 600,000 transactions, and we're going to use the Envio init quick start to really quickly get going with generating a boilerplate index for ourselves. So let's call this USDC base transfer indexer, and we are going to choose a language. Let's say choose TypeScript. And like I said, we're going to use this very quick contract import tool, which is going to actually help us generate the indexer right out the box. So if I hit the block explorer and I navigate to the base option, I've got this address copied, which is really nice. And straight away, I can look at all of the events from this contract and decide which ones we want to actually index. So as I said, let's just index the transfer event. And you can see it's an address from, it's an address to, and it's a UN256, which is some value. And this is the piece of data we are actually going to care about in index. And just like that, I'm finished, and what's happening now is our indexer is being created for us, which is very, very nice and simple. And if I open a VS Code instance, I will show you what that looks like in just a second. You'll actually see our entire indexer there has been generated. But before we do that, I'm quickly going to run this command envio dev, which is actually going to start the indexer for us. And I'll show you just in a second. This admin secret's just going to be testing. I'll show you the indexing in just a second. You can see we've already indexed more than 20,000 transfer events. But first, let me just quickly walk you through what's been generated in this USDC indexer. So the first thing is, let me make the screen a bit bigger. That'll be nice. First interesting part is the config.yaml. And you can see very simply it's defining the network, which is base. It's defining which block we should start, and we can start at 0 because we are using hypersync in the background, which is super efficient at finding the events we care about as opposed to using the RPC. And you can see we are just using this contract, we have the address, and we have this event transfer that we care about. Now this has all been auto-generated for us, remember, which is really nice. Then in the schema.graphql, this is very simply defining essentially our data and what it's going to look like. And this is showing the token transfer. It's going to have an ID. It's going to be who's it from, who's it to, the value, and we actually just have this event summary object, which is very nice, just showing us all the events that are being emitted and how many of them there are. Can be quite useful if you are indexing multiple events, but in this case we're only indexing one event, so maybe it's a little bit less useful. Nonetheless, it's nice to have it. And then finally, if you go into your source and you look at your event handlers, you'll see we have a handler. So whenever this transfer event gets emitted, we have both a loader and a handler. Now don't worry about the loader too much in this tutorial. That allows you to have optimizations. If you load the entities that you care about beforehand, it can really increase the speed of your indexer, but we won't worry about that. Instead, you'll see at this transfer handler, very simply what's happening is we are taking the values from the event. If we hit event.params from, to, and value, and we are saving them into an entity using this set command. So you can see more in the docs about how this works, and I'll quickly page over to the docs for you. Envio.dev, and you can see more about it over there. But to start off with, let's just go back to this API Explorer, hit play, and seeing the number of raw events we've actually indexed. You can see we've indexed 2 million transfer events from USDC. That's just going up every single second. So you can see it's an extremely fast indexer, which is really, really nice. And if we looked at the actual data, you could look at these transfers, and of these 2 million transfers, you could see all of them from, to, the value, and when exactly they were written to the database. So just like that, we see all the USDC transfers, and that can allow us to perhaps make an interesting query like let's get 10 USDC transfers and let's order them by value. So we want to get some of the biggest values, so let's say descending, and let's get the from, the to, and the value. And when you run a query like that, you'll see these are the biggest transfers. So you can see this person has sent to this person and they've sent this amount, which is the biggest transfer that has occurred. And you can see we are already at 2.6 million transfer events indexed. That's just been a couple minutes. So gone are the days of waiting hours and days to index your data. Extremely quickly you're able to index your data. We're popping up to 3 million events there. So even the most used contracts and the most emitted events like the transfer on the USDC are extremely quickly indexed, which creates a very nice and easy developer experience. Cool. So to summarize, what have we done? Very quickly, we have created an indexer to index the USDC token on base, and specifically we've been indexing the transfer event, which we've had a look at ERC-20 over here, what the token looks like and what this transfer event looks like, and every single transfer event that's been emitted from this USDC token contract address we have indexed, and it is now in our database, and we can run queries like give us the biggest transfers on the blockchain. And again, you can see now over 3.6 million transfers have been indexed, which is really nice. So again, if you want more info, you can head to envio.dev and very easily see a lot more about this, specifically on docs. And what's really nice is we can extend this, and we can not just index the USDC transfer events on base, but we could also add Optimism, Arbitrum, many other networks, and all bring that into a unified API, which is really nice and easy. Anyways, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this tutorial and learn a little bit more about indexing. There are many more interesting parts you might want to do in the future. You'll definitely want to define your own data. You'll want to play with your handlers and do some more interesting things when this information is emitted. This is really just a boilerplate to get you going and show you how the 3 basic steps work. But as you can see, the event fetcher, it's already caught up. We've indexed every single transfer on base, caught up just like that. It's awaiting new blocks, and I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen, and we will see you on the Discord. Head over to envio.dev and find us on Discord. Click right at the bottom here, and let's talk more about indexing. Cool. Thanks, everyone.